So for this next problem, there's two parts to it. The first part says that Lewis is doing a project on animals. He found that animals have different heart rates. He found that a cow has a heart rate of 60 to 80 beats per minute, and then other animals he found too. So let's write what he found. He found that a cow has 60 to 80, cat 110 to 140, horse 30 to 40, chicken 300 to 350, rabbit 140 to 160, and then a sheep 70 to 140 beats per minute. So what they want us to do for part one with this information is make a bar graph of the highest heart rate of each animal. So this is what the bar graph would end up looking like for students. You'd have your cow, your cat, your horse, chicken, rabbit, sheep, and you would look at the highest heart rate of each animal that it's asking you to look at, 80, 140, 40, 350, 160, 140, and make a bar graph with heart rates on the side going up. I'm going up in increments of 50. Students could make a bigger graph and go up in smaller increments, have it more precise looking. The animals at the bottom and the heart rates going up to their highest one. So for cows, that's 80, cat 140, horse 40, chicken 350, rabbit 160, and sheep 140. So this is what your graph would, all students' graphs would end up looking like for part one. The variability and the critical thinking and analyzing of the data comes more in part two. For part two, it's asking us to study the graph and to list 3 conclusions that we can draw from this graph. This is where students can really come up with any conclusions, come up with many different answers, as long as they can justify their conclusions and prove that their conclusions came from analysis and looking at this graph. Students can really have any conclusions here. Some conclusion examples that I would probably make. I would say that the average heart rate is probably around, the average animal heart rate is around 150 beats per minute. I would make this conclusion and validate this conclusion because a majority of the animals, the cow, the cat, the rabbit, the sheep, are around this 150 area. The chicken is indeed a lot more, but the horse is also a lot less than 150, and I believe that that would balance out the average to around 150. I could be off here, and I am not physically using the data to figure this out, but that's just a conclusion that I would draw from just looking at this graph. Another conclusion that I would probably draw from this graph is that all animals have a heart rate above 40. All animals have a heart rate above 30, I guess, because this one's not really above 40. Above 30 and below 360. So they have a range here. That's something that I can also prove from this graph, because this is the lowest, nothing is below 30 and nothing is above 360. For my last conclusion, I would say the difference between the highest and lowest animal heart rate is 310 beats per minute. And you could look at this and conclude that from the graph, because the highest is 350, lowest is 40, the difference is 310. So that's another conclusion that I would draw. And again, students may have different conclusions. Their conclusions may be simpler, they may be more complex, they may need more scaffolding and questioning to come up with more complex conclusions and analyzing the data a little bit deeper. But again, this is just an introductory question into data analysis, and that's why they can really come up with any three conclusions that they can draw, as long as they can support them.